Maintaining progress on key healthcare initiatives in turbulent times is difficult, especially during a pandemic. There's a problem here with my screen. There we go. So we'd like to see initiatives such as tuberculosis, child maternity health, HIV, immunization continue to grow and foster. But those folks have compromised immune systems, and they're really been impacted by COVID. I'm an emergency medical technician. I could tell you firsthand, it's difficult to know how to handle those situations as it is. But with the change in protocols and procedures we've seen over the past year, it's been very difficult. It's also difficult to treat somebody you know nothing about. We don't have access as emergent care workers about patient records and healthcare records, and that's actually changing. The Federal Electronic Health Record System has underlined the concept of making healthcare records available because COVID just made it that much more prevalent. The information that we need is not just medical problems, medication, and allergies, but it's what we do with that information. The information we collect from the fields needs to be distributed through the entire healthcare ecosystem. And here's a quote from the US Department of Transportation. EMS, Emergency Medical Services, cannot adequately service the community without being better integrated to the healthcare system. This is really our call to action. There's an inherent need here, but there's also the technologies available. It's just not being executed until now. EMT Assist Health Bot directs and collects real-time information. And what we mean by that is we have a health bot, a Bluetooth in our ear. We're able to converse with standards of care that are already coded and indexed. And then we're able to merge that with information that we're gathering from the call, and then be able to bring in clinical data, healthcare records with artificial intelligence for more efficient, safer, and sustainable healthcare, which provides better care for the patient and for the healthcare provider. This is an example of our product. I could go up and say opioid or overdose, and it's going to walk me through the care goals. We recommend a Bluetooth. It could be branded with UN, Red Cross, or anything you'd like here. So let's talk about the artificial intelligence here. Scalable product as a service. So the product, whether we're in Utah or Uganda, is pretty much the same. We can use natural language programming, as I mentioned, to get the baseline information. We're talking to the patient, we're getting basic information and building a log of what's going on. Then we're able to pull down clinical data, patient health record, and other resource information about hospital, medication, whatever else available, and use machine learning and supervised learning, again, to get that comprehensive view for the patient and actionable insight. Our team is very well experienced in data privacy, cloud architects, artificial intelligence specific to the healthcare field. And we also have a esteemed group of advisors also experienced in the medical industry. There is a lot of competition in this space that is providing clinical information, really for the consumer base though. We're different because we focus on the frontline healthcare, and we're providing interoperable real-time data. It's a key word, interoperable, so that we're able to connect to healthcare information systems and provide that real-time data. So let's look at a case study here, and this is from actually Utah, where bidirectional flow of data was used. We're able to verify the patient assessment and the treatment was accurate, look at education training, so we can use continuous improvement, observe geographic demographic trends of the area, financial reimbursement. This needs to be financially sustainable, right? We need to make sure that it's going to be reimbursed. And when we do this, it provides confidence in the entire system. We are in the process of raising capital. We're looking for $400,000 in seed capital. We've had some offers from companies like IBM for $120,000 of Watson Health, but we're looking to expand and grow our business. EMT actionable guidance and real-time data makes healthcare more efficient, safer, and sustainable for more positive patient outcomes. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen. That was really good. And
Thank
time
you,
for questions. No, really, that was really good and direct. Yeah. So let's see. Looking for Tanya's here. Tanya, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, me again. Owen, thank you so much for that. I think it's a challenge that very many organizations have tried to solve in the past. And I was particularly interested to hear about how you address the interoperability problem. Even, for example, in Spain, you have 17 autonomous regions and sharing medical data across those regions is a headache. So just trying to do that across multiple platforms and jurisdictions, even without taking into account confidentiality and privacy legislation, is a nightmare. So how do you address that? Because that is not a small problem.
Right. Yeah, these are major issues, Tanya, and I think we've addressed those really on a region by region basis. When we look at a lot of the data disposition, I have a background in this area. A lot of it, there's some misnomers about what's available, what's not available, what's accessible for data, right? And I think that's part of the problem. There's a little resistance from healthcare providers. Say, we really can't give this data up, it's not accessible. But much of it is available, and not all of it, right? And there's obviously certain limitations. And as you mentioned, various jurisdictions are going to rely on that. But there is standardization about the data and cleaning the data so that it's in a certain format. And we're going, HL7 is really what we're looking at. This data format seems to be universal here in the States and Americas. And we think that there's something similar. Europe has a very different approach to healthcare. They kind of bring healthcare to the patient, right? But those type of things are still available. The interoperability is one of the key issues. And so when we go through a cloud infrastructure and partners, whether it's IBM Health or Azure or any of the other providers, it allows us to really focus on really a platform that can be unilaterally customized to that region. So we really look at a case-by-case basis.
And just a follow-on question from that, could you just give us an indication of how many patients have come through your trials already? How many records have you been able to aggregate and provide that full picture?
So we are actually pre-revenue. We've had pilots just I'm in the New York City area, so we just have a few regions here that we focus on and just pilots. And we haven't gone out as we're building up, since we're pre-revenue, we're not going out and building the infrastructure into the HIPAA complying servers that we need to have. So that's really the key thing here in the States, and I'm sure it's the same there in Madrid and London as well. So we need to build, especially with GDPR, you need to have those servers resident in those areas, right? So once we build that out, then we'll be able to move that data and just stage it. And at that point, then we'll look at pulling it down the data into the various healthcare areas. Hope that answered your question.
And I was talking more about the patients. So how many patients? How many? What's the volume of patients you've been able to pull through the system?
It's less than 100. Again, these are just pilots that we've built out. We have an MVP that we've rolled out, and we're just building out the product as we speak.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Sarah, please, you can go. Your question, then maybe Joseph has the last question. Yeah.
Okay. Are you looking at this more as like assisted search, where you're helping EMTs find the information they need quickly and in a more structured way, or are you imagining that this also does diagnostics for patients?
So it's both, and thanks, Sarah. That's a good question. When we look at the product as it is today, we have those standards of care index. We took the national standards, index coded those, and that's in our chatbot today. So when I could go through that, there's parent-child relationship. I can talk to that and say, oh, well, somebody's fainted. Well, what is that? It could be somebody's hypoglycemic. It could be a cardiac issue. It could be a number of issues, right? And when you talk about fainting, something simple like that. And then we could start building on that. That's the first iteration, right? That'll get better in time. But the other aspect of the clinical data, we're able to bring that in. We're able to provide more data to the healthcare worker, for one, so that we have the patient record. And I'm going to say that's necessarily diagnostic. We would like to get to that point. I think that's pretty much down the road. I have to say, to be very transparent, Sarah, we're trying to stay a little bit behind any kind of liability in that situation until we get really up and running, right? I mean, we don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here, right? But I think that is definitely on our radar. That is on our 7-year plan that we're looking to get to. And I think it's closer than we think. Once we build out the HIPAA servers and we start pulling the data in, well, then it's just a matter of staging data and say, well, if all these things in a line, then this should make sense as well. But we'll be careful about that as far as making recommendations. And there may be a point, Sarah, where we just have it could be these one of three situations. And that's pretty much where we are today as well.
Great, thank you.
Owen, nice job. We've actually
Thanks, Joe.
spotlighted this as being a very, very growing, very scalable space. So keep at it. This is a really exciting space. Yeah, I think HIPAA and PII type issues are the landmines you got to be careful of. It sounds like you're right on top of that. Couple of real quick questions. You mentioned $450,000 is what you guys are targeting. What are you planning to use the money for? And then two, your platform, I imagine you're probably focusing on the US first, maybe before outside the US. And when would you foresee your platform being in a position to actually, make money from a revenue perspective?
So yeah, thanks, Joe, and I appreciate that comment. As far as developing the product, yes, we're really focusing in the U.S. right now. That's really our main concern in developing this. And I think when we're subscription based, right? We're going out and looking at the folks that are be able to buy. So there are providers that have access to this information. So you could be a large healthcare chain like Kaiser Permanente. I used to work for Kaiser, right? Is it Kaiser? Yeah, right. So right. So they have a large healthcare system. And so they would be a provider, right? So they could take care of the whole thing. There'd be a subscription for the whole group there. But when we go out to, parts of the Midwest, they're small agencies. And so they would be able to buy this and on a regular basis, but it's a subscription model. So it builds up year over year and anticipate we'll add more services as well. Today we're using Bluetooth. Eventually we'll probably use Google Glass or Amazon Glass as well. As far as revenue, we are looking at within a 6-month period to start getting revenue. Once we put this the clinical data available and start making that available, we have a couple of hospitals in the area that are interested. We should be start seeing revenue within 6 months.